We've also had news here in the last few hours. The ADF has taken the rare step of raising the alarm about 3 Chinese vessels off the Australian coast. There's also been Chinese warships spotted operating, but they also revealed that there's been yet another close call between an Australian plane and a Chinese plane, flares. All of this is very dangerous stuff, even if they were out in international waters. These sorts of encounters, there is the possibility of a real serious accident and potentially worse here. Joe, what do you make of this? And is Australia, my big concern about Australia is that we don't take our defense seriously enough. We simply, we buy a lot of shiny things, one of each big shiny thing, but we don't really have, a culture that's in a real sort of war-fighting posture when we're in a position where we may need to actually do that sort of thing.
We've only got one little boat, one little submarine sort of chugging around the coast. I think the problem has been, it's been not necessarily a lack of will, but a lack of sort of long-term decision making. So we're constantly changing our minds about what the defence capability we need is. It changes with every government. It even changes within government. So we had Tony Abbott saying we're going to get Japanese submarines. Then we had Malcolm Turnbull saying no, we're going to get French submarines. Then we had Scott Morrison saying no, we're going to go with AUKUS, which I think is the right thing to do. But God, it's taken a long time to get there. And meantime, we've got this massive lag where we're not going to get the first things for decades. So our only military strength and security actually lies with our agreement with the US, and that is why we need to make sure we are lockstep with the US.
Well, Lisa, because you mentioned all these conflicts, but it seems like right now in the world, if you look at the world, there's a great lesson in how modern warfare is being fought. It's being fought in the Red Sea with the Houthis. It's being fought in Ukraine and the use of drones and technology there. Are we preparing basically to fight the last war two wars ago, or have we got some sense of where we actually need to be in terms of what our fighting force looks like to respond to the way how war is going to be fought in the future?
You talk about the capacity that we have in terms of the weapons that we have and the artillery that we have. What about the boots on the ground? They can't actually recruit enough people into the military alone to actually ensure we've got the people there to fight for us when we need it. So you've got this threat coming in from China. You've got what's happening in the world as far as different conflicts underway. And yet here we are focused on making sure that the military has enough, DEI in it and not enough men and women on the ground to actually do the fighting.
I think when it comes to boots on the ground, the People's Liberation Army have a slight edge on us. But we definitely need technology and the money.
Boots on the ground, not high heels on the ground. Absolutely. Now, the Prime Minister, we got to move on here because so much time. The Prime Minister we want to talk about this issue with the tariffs. And Anthony Albanese, Joe, I want to ask you about this especially. We've spoken about this before. Thought that the phone call might work to get him the exemption from the steel and aluminium tariffs, but we now know that is not the case. The coalition has called on Albanese to go over to Washington to deal with Trump face-to-face. Now, aside from the irony of telling Airbus Albo to get on a plane, because he's pretty happy to do that, let's be honest about that. He likes that sort of thing. Do you think that will work? Or, could there be something else in the offing that we could offer the Americans?
Well, I think someone suggested they offer Julie Inman Grant to Elon Musk, and maybe that might square the deal.
I think it's a great idea.
I think failing any form of human sacrifice, I think I think it is still under consideration. Trump actually over-egged what was agreed to by the two men. They both agreed to say it was under consideration. Trump said it was under great consideration. He said Albo was a very fine man. That obviously bodes extremely well. They don't come into effect for another month, and so there is a long time before we can actually say that there has been no progress or that they haven't been, that Australia hasn't carved out an exemption. The Prime Minister isn't going to go and just sort of set up a tent embassy outside the White House and see if Trump lets him in. You have to arrange a meeting. Even that phone call was arranged a week ago, so it was actually arranged before Trump made the tariff announcement, and it would have been the arrangements to set the date and the time for the phone call would have been in play probably ever since Trump was elected, and let alone even inaugurated. So these things take time to set up. I think Don Farrell
sure.
meet with people.
Yeah.
So that's great.
And you've got Rudd. You've got Rudd.
We've got Kevin Rudd. I mean, come on.
Popular guy.
What could go wrong with that? But, Lisa, one of the things is if you look at the Trump overall strategy, it's about to reshore manufacturing into the United States. And this is where the world is going now. Everybody's going to have to start making more of their own stuff. That's just simply the way things go as globalism breaks up. We, though, have about 5% of our economy now devoted to manufacturing. It's one of the lowest, if not the lowest, in the OECD. I think it's almost in inverse proportion to our alcohol taxes. Have we really left ourselves exposed here by running down our industry and running up our energy prices?
Running down energy prices. What we're doing is not providing... So manufacturing, you speak of manufacturing, 42% I think it is of manufacturing relies on gas, right? So we don't have the gas supplies that are being brought out of the ground in this country to meet that demand. And what you've got with Trump is saying, well, we need to make America competitive again. Then the Business Council of Australia has just come out and said that's exactly what we need Australia to do. So that's where the pressure's going to come heading into this federal election, because you've got the leaders in this country, in the business world, finally standing up and saying, look, we need you to make it the regulatory restrictions around this lifted. We need better tax breaks. We need to make it easier in this country to run a business and actually contribute to the economy so we don't see everything going offshore.
Here, the red tape in this country, whenever I talk to people in business, and whether it's, big business or the panel beater down the road, it just says everything is simply too hard. And whenever I go to America, it just feels like people are so excited about the prospect of starting businesses, making money, getting in on it, and the optimism and the energy in America right now under Donald Trump, having been there just after the election and again in December, is just off the chart.